Before I start this session, I want you to know that I'm a fanboy, and and this is something that I don't normally feel for someone. And because I have 8 odd years ago, I watched your movie Aligarh in the theaters, and I remember there was this one specific scene where you see the professor sing a song, and you see him almost break down, and that was, I think, the moment where I thought that I wanted to be a filmmaker in some regard at some point of time. And that scene has shaped my artistic inclination.
That scene, when I see it, it told me that yes, I can make films. It sort of reinforced why, you're on set, why being there, and being able to find and explore through storytelling, through cinema, is so precious. And it reminds you why you love what you do so much. That moment was not in the script. It happened. Manoj Bajpayee was he was there. In the script, there was a small note in the second half that he's getting ready, and a Kishore Kumar song is playing in the background. So that was the script note, and we had little bit of time. The cameraman who shot the film, Satya Rai Nagpal, very fine director of photography. But Satya used to take a lot of time. So to set up that scene, he took around 5 hours. So I told Manoj, I said, यार 5 घंटे लिए थोड़ा ज़्यादा shoot करते. I can't just have you making your hair, कुछ करते इसमें. So Manoj said, कौन सा गाना सुनेगा? I said, यार that आपकी नजरों ने समझा, लता जी. Because the professor, I had read his poetry, Paya Khali Hirwal. So the grass beneath my feet. So these are Marathi poems. So I had read his poems, and he had written this very, very childlike poem dedicated to Lata Mangeshkar on her 60th birthday. And most of his poems, lot of his poems had gaps. There were these very childish poems, which were all written to Lata Mangeshkar. It's the expression of somebody who has forgotten that he's a poet. You're so madly in love with that person's art. So I said, let's play my favorite Lata Mangeshkar song. It talks about love, in a way that is a bit too unconditional for my liking. But yeah, so we played that song, and Manoj simply, I just said, just go, we'll see what happens. And that's what, cinema is all about that. It's about, we'll see what happens.
Correct, sir. Very beautifully put. Did not introduce you because I think you are a very illustrious individual, and मैं आपके लिए जितना भी बोलूँ कम रहेगा, and I think you have been introduced very beautifully. I gave you that anecdote because I could not stop myself from giving that anecdote, but thank you for taking the time and coming here and making time for this event. Guys, a huge round of applause for this fine gentleman here. The reason why I mentioned Aligarh is because it's a follow-up question, is that we're talking about regional cinema, right? And you have been a Bollywood filmmaker for majority of your working life. But Aligarh essentially shows you the story of a man from a small city, and Aligarh, to some regard, is not a metro, right? So do you think that qualifies in some regard as a regional movie?
I have an objection to both the terms.
Okay.
To Bollywood, I don't belong to, there's no place called Bollywood. Bollywood does not exist. It exists in the minds of people who trivialize a particular kind of cinema. And so does regional cinema. This is this division has been created, because we are based in Mumbai, and in Mumbai, the cinema of the 50s, 60s, a lot of it was dominated by the North Indians. This Hindi language cinema, in the 70s, somebody coined this term Bollywood. It's a derivative term. And in my mind, it's not only derivative, it's derogatory. Because we make a wide variety of films that tell stories about the entire country. And it is as regional. Hindi is not a national language. It is as regional. It is a language spoken by a number of people, understood by a number of people. But for me, I speak Marathi, I speak Gujarati, and I understand both the languages. And for me, they are as mainstream as Hindi. So they're not regional, it's not regional cinema for me at all.
Correct, sir. Sir, pardon me for being a little direct, but you're a product of failure and disappointment is something you had told Nilesh Mishra in one of your interviews. Why did you feel that way, despite all the critical acclaim you have been given, and you're a national award winner at the end of the day? Why do you feel you are a product of failure and disappointment?
No, I say it in a very positive way. I made my first film. It was called Jayate, which was made in 1998, I think. I've forgotten the year also. It's 25 years ago. I made my first film. And I was just finding my way. So in finding my way, I lost my way. And, I'm not afraid to say that, yeah, I failed. I failed as a storyteller. I failed as a filmmaker. But I never gave up. So I picked up the pieces from where things, nothing was a full stop. I started again. And in that, I think somewhere I found my voice. I have been somebody in search of a voice. Even now, I'm constantly searching my voice through the characters, through the films, through the stories that I make.
Even after all this time, you're searching your voice?
I don't think there's all this time, because I get up every day with the same kind of anxiety, nervousness, and amazement also. Sometimes when I just watch, like I was a few days back, I was watching a film called After Sun. It's on Movie India, and I was completely not only amazed, I was gobsmacked by the kind of film it was. It was almost like an entry in a diary, like a small entry in a diary, and yet it was so beautiful that it did not leave me. It has still not left me. The relationship between a father and a daughter through this small vacation together. If you've not seen it, I recommend you see it. It tells you that storytelling in cinema is so much beyond what we believe it is. Which is why Bollywood, I find it very reductive. The word Bollywood or regional cinema, I find it very reductive. We, in order to justify mediocrity, we reduce everything to small things. Oh, this is mainstream Bollywood. I don't think there is anything called mainstream Bollywood. I think films recover a lot of money. Some films recover less money. Some films don't make money. But that is not the yardstick. That is not why films are made. Films are not made. If I made Shahid with Rajkumar Rao, it was made for 35 lakhs. There was no money to make the film. So it was successful from the day it started. It was a 35 lakh film. And did it make money? I don't know. I don't know whether it made money. But what I know is that it fed the ecosystem with an actor called Rajkumar Rao. So I always say that, we are in the business of agriculture. We are, feeding the ecosystem with talent. If I'm making a film with, so a few months back I released a film called Faraz. It did not do too well, but it had this very, very new cast. And people ask me, why have you done this after Scam, which was so successful? I said, I did that to remind myself that I have to get up every day and start afresh. And what it has done, the success of that film is in the fact that the actors in the film, the technicians, the cinematographer, they're all young. The average age on my set was 26. All of them don't have dates to give me for my next film. So I think that is a larger success. When you feed the system with, like the parallel cinema of the 70s, it gave us this huge explosion of talent, which is still working today, which is still relevant today. That explosion, don't we belittle this is again mediocrity at work, that our thinking has become so narrowed down to, because social media says, oh, that's a 100 crore film, 150 crore. We have narrowed down our understanding of what art in general is supposed to do.
Sir, although you may argue that you haven't figured out your voice, I, as an audience, as a viewer, to a maker, I think I have an inkling of what your voice is. I could be wrong, I could be entirely wrong in thinking so. It is that in some manner of speaking, you want to be the voice to the marginalized or the minority. Because you watch Aligarh, it's about a professor who is struggling with his sexual orientation and a sting operation being done on him. Be it Shahid, right? It is about person who is assassinated for just doing his job at the end of the day, just because he belonged to a minority community. Or be it City Lights, again, you're talking about a person who belongs to the marginalized. So do you have a soft corner for the minorities or the marginalized? That's why you do what you do?
I don't know. I think stories for me are born out of empathy. So I choose characters with whom, even if it is a highly, you can empathize with somebody's negativity also. You can empathize with a variety of emotions. So, I made a film called Omerta, which was about Omar Saeed Sheikh. So you empathize with the character's state of mind. You try to understand that through films. So yes, I think my upbringing and perhaps my political leanings lead me to, I sort of get drawn to these stories of people who are on the fringes of society and who have remained so because of the way our society has evolved over the years. So it comes out of concern, empathy, and often anger. So yes, my films, while they look empathetic and soft, they are born out of anger. There is a deep-rooted anger that I have, and I think that anger keeps me alive.
Beautiful, sir. Beautiful. Okay, so you brought up Omerta. Also, although I was going to go to another question, I'll still hang on to Omerta for a while because, as you put it, you have tried to empathize or make the character is that of an antagonist, right? It is a person who has done some really vile things. He has kidnapped people and he has killed them. And there was this one scene where he's hacking the head of this person, and Rajkumar Rao talks about how he went to a dark place while he was doing that because he could almost empathize with a terrorist, right? In that moment, he felt empathy for a terrorist. Would you want to talk about that? And do you think that is right? I know that right and wrong, they are very ambiguous terms, they are subjective, but to you, what is right? Do you think it is okay to empathize with a terrorist?
I think it is okay to be faithful to your story. And I don't see anybody as an antagonist or a protagonist. So there's no clear, these lines of black and white are very blurred because nobody does something knowing that he's an antagonist, that he's doing something wrong. You are justified within you. So I want to explore that. I want to explore why you're doing something that you're doing. Like Scam 1992. Hansal Mehta was not God. He was not an angel. He finally swindled the banks. He tricked the system. But in his mind, he thought, what wrong am I doing? I'm just making people prosperous using loopholes in the system. So you sort of justify these things to yourself. And so I'm just trying to explore various facets of the human, condition, the human mind, through the characters that are. I'm fortunate that I'm making films at this time when we are able to explore this. This whole OTT boom, and I should not say it. The pandemic has sort of allowed us to explore further. It has given us a new lease of life in telling stories which are not necessarily bound by the conventions of what we call the mainstream. We are not. Otherwise, you have these stars, you have these songs. So I'm nothing against it. I watch those films a lot, but I would rather make something that I'm more comfortable making. And this format has given me that freedom, and the longer form that you want to tell stories. Not every story can be told in 2 hours. Some stories you want to spend time with the characters. So I as a filmmaker, I believe I tell stories based on characters. My storytelling is character driven, not plot driven.
Okay.
So I'm getting to tell these stories through the longer format, where I'm able to live with the character for a longer time.
An interesting thought, and I think most of us will agree that nobody here is black and white. We're a color of gray, most of us. We are talking about regional cinema, right? And region is an interesting term because I'll not get into the movie aspect of it. What I would like to understand is the region you come from, you know, the soil that made you. What kind of environment has constituted into you making the kind of cinema you did? Talk about your childhood.
The region I come from is a place called Bombay. It became Mumbai later. I come from Bombay, and it has, I've grown up not knowing the difference between one, part of India against the other. We were all, it was such a homogenized society. And my films have come out of that pain. Somewhere something shifted. Something, shifted. I think it became more outward, perhaps. I realized that there was something that there was a festering differences that came out to the fore, and which have become more and more, they've become more and more toxic, particularly in the last 10 odd years. I grew up in an environment where we were far more inclusive, far more, secular. I struggle to use the word because, it is now being used as a swear word. It is almost censored to use the word secular. But yes, I grew up in a time when we were a secular country, and Bombay was like the epitome of that. So I'm a Gujarati. My ancestry was from Surat, and yes, I've retained my connection to my roots through some terrible Gujarati plays. Like Gujarati theatre was awful, but very, very entertaining. So as a child, my parents used to forcibly take me on weekends, because if they would not take me, I would cry. So I had to go and watch on Saturdays. There are these mandals that go together in buses to watch plays. So I would accompany them and watch plays, and I would laugh without understanding also, because everybody would laugh. So, it sort of exposed me to this collective, how entertainment impacts people. We went back home very happy. We went back home happy. I could not figure why that person was screaming so loudly. But yeah, it's, and I do feel, when you talk, I feel our Gujarati cinema, we have a very fine filmmaker here, Abhishek, who has made perhaps one of the good Gujarati films of the past few years, Ellaru. I think there's a long way to go. We need to break out of, a lot of these different language cinemas need to break out of their desire to either emulate some other cinema from some other language, or to emulate Hindi cinema, mainstream Hindi cinema. They have to break out of that, tell their own stories. And I crave to to make a Gujarati film. So I do it within what is allowed to me, what the money that I get.
Will you make some Gujarati movie at some point?
Scam 1992 was the Gujarati film. I was made in a lot of Hindi because I got money to make a Hindi show. So ultimately I make what I'm given money to make.